What is up, Watch fam? Happy Monday, and welcome to this week's episode of Rant&H. I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and today I'm going to be diving into Omega's newest release, my watch from 1950. All right, before we jump into today's rant, which is obviously being recorded very last minute because we're not in our office, but we had to record anyway because you guys need your content. I am going to do a wristwatch check. I'm wearing my vintage Omega Seamaster, which is actually basically the subject of today's entire episode. Baselworld 2018. I'm done with talking about it. Almost. This is the one note I wanted to revisit, or actually give some time to, maybe even for the first time. Most people aren't talking about it, but for me it's very exciting. Omega released quite a few watches, an oddball Speedmaster, a couple of Seamasters, but the watch that really revved me up was this. Actually, a set of two Seamaster reissues. This mini collection is referred to as the 1948, and one of them, at least in my humble opinion, is pretty fantastic. That's this one. The center second model. And why do I care so much? Because it's a reissue of my watch. Look, it's got beveled lugs, a subtly convex dial, soft Arabic numerals at 12, 3, 6, and 9. It's got dagger markers, a minute track at the center, short seconds, and broad doffing hands. It is, for all intents and purposes, the exact reissue of my vintage Seamaster from 1950. Mine is powered by the 354 Omega caliber bumper movement, and it was gifted to me by my parents for my 21st birthday. And because this vintage Omega, although an absolutely incredible watch and very meaningful to me, isn't technically a massively historic and significant watch like a Rolex GMT Master or like a Geophysique by Jaeger LeCoultre, I never expected Omega to give this the time of day. It's not an obvious reissue. It's not the Speedy. It's not the Railmaster. It's not the Seamaster. It's just a humble, vintage late 40s, mine is a 1950, regular Seamaster. And to me, that's just so exciting. So let's jump into the exact watch Omega just released, and let's talk about whether or not it actually stacks up to the original. Obviously, I absolutely love its fundamental design elements, but its size at 38 millimeters is actually respectable. Sure, I would have been happy at 36. I think that would have been fairly good common ground from the original 34, but I completely understand and agree with Omega that 36 millimeters is probably more profitable and viable because of its reach. Many people would be turned off, I think, by a 36 millimeter watch, even though to me it's such a glorious size. So I think that 38 is good for us as vintage lovers, but it's also good for Omega. I don't want to be, selfish or delusional here. So basically props on the 38 millimeter case size. And powering the watch isn't one of Omega's vintage bumper movements. It's their modern coaxial Master Chronometer, arguably one of the best production movements, particularly at its price point. Not only is it well finished, that's just an extra, bit of goodness, but the overall construction and history of the coaxial Omega movement, all the way back to George Daniels, is very significant. And if you don't know a lot about it, check out the link in the description of the video. It's very technical stuff, but still, on one level or another, you got to appreciate the history of these movement developments. Further, it's not just a chronometer, but a Master Chronometer. This is a particularly specifically Omega certification. It's called their METAS certification, METAS. Omega has challenged all brands to meet these new standards, but for many reasons, I'm sure, not just capability, they have not. So bottom line is, the watch is not just pretty, but it is technically, when I say technical construction, it's a very good watch. So far, we're basically all aces here. Everything we've seen so far is, although vintage, very tasteful, and in the technology of the movement, it does meet modernity. Again, with the size concession, I think Omega's done well, but to me, there's just one massive miss here, and that's the caseback. Take a look here. It's of a boat and a plane here. I think it's terribly ugly. The inscription itself for the design is not necessarily bad, but it totally clashes with the movement because there's a lot going on with both of them. And I also feel like putting a design on a sapphire caseback is pretty much so antithetical. The whole point of a sapphire caseback is an unobstructed view into the movement. So on many levels, I think this is a bad decision. But if I just criticize the caseback, that wouldn't be as respectable as offering an alternative. I think it would have been wonderful if Omega, either on the steel part of the caseback or maybe somewhere on the movement, engrave for Sea, Town, and Country, one of the original Omega Seamaster marketing lines. It really embodies what the watch is or was meant to be, particularly in the 50s. A watch that, yes, was water resistant, so you could take it on the sea, was, yes, classy enough for you to wear it out to dinner on the town, and then durable enough for you to take it out into country. I think that's a wonderful piece of marketing, and since it's historical, I think it would have been really impressive if Omega utilized that as opposed to this, design. So it's very clear. I like this watch. I think Omega did a very nice job remaking one of my personal favorites from my own collection. The price point, I'm not going to get into. It's a little bit high, I believe in the $6,000 range, but that's a different conversation for a different day. I think that right now it's enough to say, as so many of you guys are on a regular basis, I'm just excited about a watch. I'm just excited. Cheers, Omega. If you guys like this video and want to talk about watches again with me tomorrow, hit the subscribe button below. It would mean the absolute world to us to be able to deliver more valuable watch content to you. So we'll speak tomorrow, guys.